Hello, it's me, it's Miss Checka. It's Friday, it's very exciting. I have a short story for you. This is one of my favorite stories. I actually teach this one every year, and it's called Thank You, Ma'am, and it's by Langston Hughes. So before we start the story, it's really important to know who Langston Hughes was because he was a very famous American writer. He's another guy that was not really famous for writing books. In his case, he's famous for writing beautiful poetry that has had like a big influence, and also short stories. But he wrote all kinds of stuff. And another really cool thing about Langston Hughes is that he was a writer very important during the Harlem Renaissance. So Harlem is a Black neighborhood in New York City. And in like the 1920s, 30s, there was an explosion of all kinds of really cool artistic stuff that was happening there because there was these writers, musicians, all kinds of really cool people, and they all lived sort of in the same neighborhood and would hang out and bounce ideas off of each other. And they were people like Zora Neale Hurston, Langston Hughes, and lots of jazz musicians. So anyway, it's just fun to think about this one neighborhood producing all of these really amazing artists. And Langston Hughes is one of them. And today we consider him like one of our best writers like ever in American history. And all of his papers are at Yale University. So that's kind of cool. I see Tess there. Hi, Tess. Okay, so let's just start with the story. She was a large woman with a large purse that had everything in it but hammer and nails. It had a long strap, and she carried it slung across her shoulder. It was about 11 o'clock at night, and she was walking alone when a boy ran up behind her and tried to snatch her purse. The strap broke with the single tug the boy gave it from behind, but the boy's weight and the weight of the purse combined to cause him to lose his balance. So instead of taking off full blast as he had hoped, the boy fell on his back on the sidewalk, his legs flew up, and the large woman simply turned around and kicked him right in his blue jean sitter. Then she reached down, picked the boy up by his shirt front, and shook him till his teeth rattled. Oh, Christian Alexander. Hi, Christian. We're reading Langston Hughes. It's very exciting. First of all, when it says blue jean sitter, you know which part of his body he got kicked in? It says butt. That's where you sit. After that, the woman said, "Pick up my pocketbook, boy, and give it here." She still held him, but she bent down enough to permit him to stoop and pick up her purse. Then she said, "Now, ain't you ashamed of yourself?" Firmly gripped by his shirt front, the boy said, "Yes'm." The woman said, "What'd you want to do it for?" The boy said, "I didn't aim to." She said, "You a lie." By that time, 2 or 3 people passed, stopped, turned to look. Some stood watching. "If I turn you loose, will you run?" asked the woman. "Yes'm," said the boy. "Then I won't turn you loose," said the woman. She did not release him. "I'm very sorry, lady. I'm sorry," whispered the boy. "And your face is dirty. I got a great mind to wash your face for you. Ain't you got nobody home to tell you to wash your face?" "No," said the boy. "Then it will get washed this evening," said the large woman, starting up the street, dragging the frightened boy behind her. He looked as if he were 14 or 15, frail and willow wild in tennis shoes and blue jeans. The woman said, "You ought to be my son. I would teach you right from wrong. Least I can do right now is wash your face. Are you hungry?" "No," said the being dragged boy. "I just want you to turn me loose." "Ho, ho, ho. Was I bothering you when I turned that corner?" asked the woman. "No, but you put yourself in contact with me," said the woman. "If you think that contact is not going to last a while, you got another thought coming. When I get through with you, sir, you are going to remember Mrs. Luella Bates Washington Jones. Sweat popped out on the boy's face, and he began to struggle. Mrs. Jones stopped, jerked him around in front of her, put a half Nelson about his neck, and continued to drag him up the street. When she got to her door, she dragged the boy inside, down a hall, and into a large kitchenette-furnished room at the rear of a house. She switched on the light and left the door open. The boy could hear other roomers laughing and talking in the large house. Some of their doors were open too. So he knew he and the woman were not alone. The woman still had him by his neck in the middle of her room. I'm going to pause a little second here and point out some things. Number one, do we feel like the boy is sorry that he tried to steal the lady's purse right now? Or do we feel like he's just sorry he got caught? You know? Because he's real sorry he got caught, but he doesn't really seem contrite. He doesn't seem like he's sorry about his actions. Second thing, we're getting a lot of clues about this lady right here in this paragraph. So I just want to explain that in New York, it's really crowded. It's a really crowded city. And Harlem is in Manhattan, which is the most crowded of all the 5 boroughs, because Manhattan it's an island, right? So when it says rumor, that's ROOMER, not like rumor gossip. So this is a boarding house that the lady lives in, and boarding houses used to be really common. So it's almost like an adult dorm room. So instead of renting a whole apartment for yourself, you rent one room in somebody's house, and then usually like the bathroom is shared. So we know this because it says like the roomers' doors are opened. And also, how many rooms does she have? She has one. And it has a kitchenette. So a kitchenette is not a full kitchen. The kitchenette is like maybe in the corner, you've got like a burner, maybe, you know. So these are kind of giving us hints that this lady does not have a huge amount of money, okay? She said, "What is your name?" "Roger," answered the boy. "Then Roger, you go to that sink and wash your face," said the woman, whereupon she turned him loose at last. Roger looked at the door, looked at the woman, looked at the door, and went to the sink. "Let the water run until it gets warm," she said. "Here's a clean towel." "Are you going to take me to jail?" asked the boy, bending over the sink. "Not with that face. I would not take you nowhere," said the woman. "Here I am trying to get home to cook me a bite to eat, and you snatched my pocketbook. Maybe you ain't been to your supper either, late as it be. Have you?" "There's nobody at my house," said the boy. "Then we'll eat," said the woman. "I believe you're hungry, or been hungry, to try to snatch my pocketbook." "I wanted a pair of blue suede shoes," said the boy. "Well, you didn't have to snatch my pocketbook to get some suede shoes," says Mrs. Luella Bates Washington Jones. "You could have asked me." "Ma'am?" The water dripping from his face, the boy looked at her. There was a long pause, a very long pause. After he dried his face and not knowing what else to do, dried it again, the boy turned around, wondering what next. The door was open. He could make a dash for it down the hall. He could run. The woman was sitting on the daybed. After a while, she said, "I were young once, and I wanted things I could not get." There was another long pause. The boy's mouth opened, then he frowned, but not knowing he frowned. The woman said, "You thought I was going to say, but, didn't you? You thought I was going to say, but I didn't snatch people's pocketbooks." "Well, I wasn't going to say that." Pause. Silence. "I have done things too, which I would not tell you, son, neither tell God if he didn't already know. So you sit down while I fix us something to eat. You might run a comb through your hair so you'll look presentable." In another corner of the room, behind a screen, was a gas plate and an icebox. Mrs. Jones got up and went behind the screen. The woman did not watch the boy to see if he was going to run now, nor did she watch her purse, which she left behind her on the daybed. But the boy took care to sit on the far side of the room where he thought she could easily see him out of the corner of her eye if she wanted to. He did not trust the woman not to trust him, and he did not want to be mistrusted now. So I'm going to pause a little second again. So first of all, you can almost see the wheels turning in this kid's mind, right? Like at first, he just wants to get away from this lady. But then there are all of these signals that show us, like he looks at the door, he looks at the lady, he's choosing to be there, right? He's choosing to be there. And she leaves her purse out. This is the same purse that he tried to rob, but she's trusting him with it. And he wants to be trusted. So now he kind of cares about her opinion. The other thing is she tried to give him an out and say like, oh, maybe you were just robbing me because you're like really hungry. And he tells her, no, it's not because I was hungry. It's because I wanted blue suede shoes. And blue suede shoes used to be a really big deal. It used to be super stylish. One of the ways we know is because Elvis has a whole song called Don't Mess With My Blue Suede Shoes. So he wasn't even stealing because it was necessity. It was something that he wanted. And she doesn't judge him. You know, she's just like, yeah, well, I've done things too. Do you need somebody to go to the store? Asked the boy. Maybe to get some milk or something? Don't believe I do, said the woman, unless you just want sweet milk yourself. I was going to make cocoa out of this canned milk I got here. That'll be fine, said the boy. That's our other little clue. Mrs. Luella Bates Washington Jones does not have a lot of money. And this is like a big clue because if somebody invites you over to eat and your first thought is, oh, hey, do you need me to go to the store to get food? That means that that's not a whole lot of food. So she has enough food for herself, which is not a lot, and she's sharing it with him, right? But the fact that he was like, oh, do you need me to go to the store? That's our clue there. She heated some lima beans and ham that she had in the icebox, made the cocoa, and set the table. The woman did not ask the boy anything about where he lived or his folks or anything else that would embarrass him. Instead, as they ate, she told him about her job in a hotel beauty shop that stayed open late, what the work was like, and how all kinds of women came in and out, blondes, redheads, Spanish. Then she cut him a half of her 10-cent cake. Eat some more, son, she said. When they were finished eating, she got up and said, now here, take this $10 and buy yourself some blue suede shoes. And next time, do not make the mistake of latching onto my pocketbook nor nobody else's, because shoes come by devilish like that will burn your feet. I got to get my rest now, but I wish you would behave yourself, son, from here on in. She led him down the hall to the front door and opened it. Good night. Now behave yourself, boy, she said, looking out into the street. The boy wanted to say something else other than, thank you, ma'am, to Mrs. Luella Bates Washington Jones, but he couldn't do so as he turned at the barren stoop and looked back at the large woman in the door. He barely managed to say, thank you, before she shut the door, and he never saw her again. So there's a couple of things. Number one, we know that this is an old story because I said so at the beginning. And also there's clues in the story, right? She has an ice box. We don't have ice boxes anymore. We have refrigerators with freezers in them. But notice that when she's sharing her food, she has as a treat, she has a 10-cent cake. And she has enough just for herself, but she shares it. So she shares half of a 10-cent cake. Like, here's my little 10-cent cake, you take half. So that lets us know that for her, 10 cents is a lot, which makes sense because this story is probably from like the 30s, right? But that little detail about the 10 cents is important because what's the very next amount of money that we see? She gives him $10 to buy the blue suede shoes. So for her, that's a big amount of money. And the reason that I keep bringing it up is because I think that it's interesting sometimes when we think about whether it's wrong or right to steal from somebody. Does it make a difference morally if that person has very little? That's not a question I can answer for you, but it's just something to think about, right? So if you have like, I don't know, $1 million and I steal $1, is that the same as you have $5 and I steal $1? You know, because I mean, it's still wrong, but is it the same degree of wrong? It's just something to think about. The other thing to think about is what happens later, because that's the end of the story, right? Does he change his ways and then he never steals from anybody else again because this lady was so kind to him? Or does he, the next day, like, whatever, lady, and then steals the next day? We don't know. The story doesn't tell us. So we have to kind of decide that in our own imaginations. And, so Tess is saying here, like, it's not the same. Yeah, I agree with you, Tess. But it's also, the story kind of asks the question in reverse, is if you give something to somebody, does it count differently depending on how much you have, right? So if I have $1 million and I give you $1, well, that's nice. Yeah, I gave you $1. But if I only have $5 and I give you $1, then that's a bigger gift, even though it's the same amount, right? Because it's more important to me because I have less. So the fact that he stole from somebody that didn't have a lot, and then when he sees her living situation, he feels differently about it. But also the fact that, like, she gave him an amount of money, which is really kind of a sacrifice to her. So I love this story because it makes me think so much. And it also, the story is very similar in theme to an incident that happens in a French book that I love very, very much, which is called Les Miserables. And if you ever read that book, or there's movies on it, there's a musical about it, there's a very similar incident in that story. But it kind of, it's the same theme. It kind of asks the question is, when somebody does you wrong, right? They steal from you or they do something to you. Can you influence that person to change by responding in kindness? And then it doesn't answer that question. It lets us decide that for ourselves. So anyway, that is Langston Hughes. And I just really encourage you to read Langston Hughes' poems and short stories because they make you think and they kind of hit the heart a little bit. And also look up the Harlem Renaissance because it's fascinating and wonderful. And I think, if I had like a time travel ticket, I would have really loved to have lived in that neighborhood during the Harlem Renaissance and gotten to go to all those fun parties. So anyway, if anybody has any questions or comments, you can ask them. And other than that, I wish everybody like a very, very good weekend. Mm-hmm. Christian, if you're still there, what's your favorite Langston Hughes anything? Like poem, short story, anything. What do you like about Langston Hughes? She may not be there anymore. Okay. Christian Alexander, Les Mis is wonderful. Les Mis is wonderful. That's like a formative novel for me. So you know that. Tess, I'm doing really, really well. I'll tell you a nerdy thing before I let y'all go for the weekend is, so this is one of my favorite books ever, Moby Dick. It's a very, very, very large book, and I love reading it. I have a t-shirt that is like a Moby Dick t-shirt. Hang on, I'll even show you. Hold on. I even have, because my friend gave me a Herman Melville finger puppet. He's the one who wrote the book. And Moby Dick whale. Oh no, Tess, are you over online school? But were you ever into online school? That's the question. All right. So you know that I love this book because I read it a lot and because I have finger puppets of the main character who's a whale, and Herman Melville, the guy who wrote it. Well, this is like my exciting nerd thing, is that every single year, there's this museum in Massachusetts and they read the whole book out loud in a marathon. But like, look how big this book is, right? So they read the whole book out loud. And I've always wanted to go. I've always wanted to participate, but I can't go. And this year, because of coronavirus, they're doing it online. So they're having people read videos online. So I got chosen and I got to read a whole chapter, and I made a video and I just submitted it this morning. So that's probably like the most exciting thing that's ever happened to me. I have not seen Nailed It. I did not know they had an episode about it. And now obviously I need to watch that. That's kind of woohoo. There's like a whale in it? But anyway, so I got to read a chapter of Moby Dick for the read aloud. And it was a very exciting chapter, so I was happy. So anyway, that's my nerd news. Your favorite Langston Hughes poem is I Too. Is that I Too Am America? Let's look it up. Hold on. Langston Hughes. I think I might have used part of that in a protest sign one time as a protest. Let's see. Oh, I did use this as a protest sign. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Let's look at it. Tess, so you think that I should definitely watch, what is it? Nailed It? Okay. I will watch it. But I also am going to read this poem that Christian is telling us about. It says, I too sing America. I am the darker brother. They send me to eat in the kitchen when company comes, but I laugh and eat well and grow strong. Tomorrow, I'll be at the table when company comes. Nobody will dare say to me, eat in the kitchen then. Besides, they'll see how beautiful I am and be ashamed. I, too, am America. Oh, Christian Alexander. Such a good, strong choice. Strong choice. That's a good poem. All right. Well, it was fun to read this story with both of you guys. I'm glad to have like a Langston Hughes buddy. And Tess, I'm sorry that you're over online school. Oh my gosh. Okay. No, you're right. Christian Alexander, you're totally right. Maybe I need to like this weekend get my act together in terms of podcast. Okay. All right. Bye. Both of you guys have a really, really good weekend. And Christian, I do promise to get my act together.